Chapter 196 to 198. You know, without your devil fruit, you can't win. Our combined power level surpasses yours. My wisdom eyes don't lie, Rocky commented as she pulled out her sword. Amon just stayed silent at her remark. Kami, can't we do this some other way? Yona pleaded. I don't want to hurt you. The others, Sumi, Yurush, Wiper, and Hancock stayed silent. Wiper was silent because he knew Amon wasn't dumb enough to challenge them all at once without having a backup plan, and Yurush knew his god was unbeatable, so he didn't mind helping him at his test. On the other hand, Hancock knew better to question his judgment. Meanwhile, Sumi had a similar thought to Raki and Yona. She was born to worship the thunder god, but without thunder powers. Amon was nothing but a sealed god. No. Meanwhile, Ayasa watched all this happening from a corner of the room, sitting on a chair. She was interested in seeing how strong her older brother really was. It was no doubt to her, devil fruit-wise, her brother was the strongest, but how would he fare without his fruit power? She watched as Amon's wings rose in the air. Now that she thought about it, she had heard from Robin and Cricket that he used to use his wings a lot previously. Either way, she took a deep breath and noted the distance between her and the fighters. She should be fine here. If he was actually planning to kill them, his first target would have been the strongest person in the room. Rakei, her devil, is only working on 10% power, but that didn't mean she was 90% weaker than her actual level. Her swordsmanship even surpassed his, as he is more of a sword user, not a swordsman. Locking eyes with Raki, giving her a cold stare, Amon declared, I would not waste your time. 5 minutes. That's how long the math would be. Now start. 5 minutes would be too long for this match. Amon might not have his devil fruit powers right now, but he was still one of the fastest characters alive. He could even fight a non-serious Kizaru hand-to-hand like Rayleigh, maybe even better, so this would be a quick match. His first target would be the second fastest person in the room. Rising my wings is a distraction. If I want to finish this match first, I better not use my wings, Amon noted. Anyway, immediately, as he had assumed, Sumi and Yuruj went closer to Ruki to back her up. They had assumed Amon would target her, so backup was needed. Meanwhile, Wiper coated his arms with armament hockey and heated up his arms as if they were made of metal, just like Amon had explained a few minutes ago. With one of his arms burning red and the other having equipped with a spear, Wiper proceeded to kick the ground fast. Amon noted it as his heavenly step and grinned as Wiper's body blurred and he arrived closer to Amon, throwing a punch at his face. He was surprised to see his punch missing Amon's face. He heard a voice from behind him. It's quite the improvement you've made to Geppo heavenly steps, huh? Wiper's eyes enlarged as he sensed a fist coming closer to his ribs. Though you should have learned Kamiya as well. Wiper finally understood how Amon had dodged his attack, but it was too late. Crack. Amon's conqueror's hockey-coated fist hit the air as if coming into contact with an invisible wall, while a trace of black lightning penetrated Wiper's side, his kidney, as his eyes rolled back. Before Wiper's legs could give up, he clenched his jaws and shoved his spear behind. He couldn't see behind him, so his aim was off. He felt Amon guard the spear with his one hand, while using the other one to punch at his other kidney with similar force. Cook. At the fourth hit from Amon's conqueror-coated attacks, Wiper coughed blood and fell on his face first. Amon simply ignored him and turned around. 8 seconds, 1 out. He simply commented before kicking the ground, similar to Wiper. His figure didn't blur. He literally vanished. This time it was Hancock's turn. Hancock could feel Amon coming towards her. Wiper's battle lasted only 8 seconds, and she was almost about to attack Amon with her love beam, but the battle had already ended and she was rendered unable to use her power, though she doubted if her power would have even worked on Amon or not, since he already has great hockey, along with the fact that she can only use 10% of her power. So instead, feeling Amon's blurred fist coming closer to her fist, she tried coating her own arm in color of Conqueror as well. Unlike Amon's fist, where black lightning was dancing, only a small flicker appeared on Hancock's fist as she tried to clash with Amon. Crack. Another crack sounded out as the two fists connected with each other. Hancock felt a sharp pain in her forearm's bone. She wasn't a puncher, kicking was her specialty, but from the point of Amon's fist, using her legs to block the attack was impossible. Hancock groaned lightly, but she didn't get the time to regain her composure. Amon grabbed her hair tightly and pushed her head down, while at the same time raising his knees to hit her face. And as expected, since Hancock was caught off guard, the knee hit her face, her nose, and teeth, as another crack sounded out. Her nose was broken, her teeth were shattered. She was still conscious though. Glancing at her tall, bent-over back, Amon raised his elbow and coated the pointy end with Conqueror's hockey. Immediately, he shoved his elbow down as it hit above Hancock's heart. Her breathing stopped as she gasped for air. And with another 2 hit with his elbows, Hancock went unconscious 7 seconds. 2 out, Amon commented as he watched the horrified expression of Sumi. Wasn't Hancock his lover? How can he be so brutal with her? Meanwhile, noting her as his next target, Amon moved again. This time, his plan didn't go quite right. Sumi was with Yuruj and Raki, so she wasn't a lone target like Wiper and Hancock. Amon had followed the same plan as striking Sumi's stomach with his conqueror's hockey-coated attack, but unlike before, the attack was stopped. A sword appeared in front of his fist and stopped it from advancing. That was easier than I had expected. Amon heard Raki's voice, who had used one of her swords to block his attack. He immediately raised his hand for an attack but stopped midway. Urush, he looked behind Raki where Urush was prepared to reflect his attack. While modern problems require modern solutions, Amon changed his stance as illusionary fins appeared in his palm. Fishman karate, heart of depth. A huge ball of water formed in front of the three, and before they would understand anything, water rushed towards their faces. Raki got an immediate idea of what was going to happen, so she immediately blocked her nose with her fingers. But Urush and Sumi weren't so lucky. Water entered their noses and invaded their lungs. Normally this much water wouldn't be enough to render them unable to use their fruits, but since they were already weakened by the ring, Urush couldn't use his power to send the water back to Amon. Both started coughing out water, as Raki was caught off guard for a second. She has seen Jinbai use Fishman karate, and she herself has used it to fight, but she never thought of using it this way. This was surely all devil fruit users' bane. Still, she regained her composure and prepared to rush towards Amon, but Amon moved first. He blurred and slapped her forearms, causing her to drop the swords to the ground. Amon then swung his fist backwards and landed a punch on her cheeks, causing her body to skip up because of the recoil. Raki groaned, but Amon didn't stop. He swung his fist backwards and covered it with Conqueror's hockey this time, then shoved it forward, landing it on Raki's stomach as she gasped and coughed out saliva. Bastard. Raki cursed, but Amon didn't stop there. He realized even hitting her with Conqueror's hockey is not enough, so he needed to play dirty. Sorry, didn't want to do this to you at least, Amon suddenly said as he drew his leg backwards. The next moment, black lightning flickered on his kneecap as he shoved it forward, right at Raki's crotch. Bam motherfucker. Amon didn't stop there. He grabbed her hair and slammed her head on the wall beside and kicked her in the crotch again and again. The next second, he let her go as she sloppily fell on the floor. She wasn't unconscious like Hancock and Wiper, but she was surely unable to move. Amon then looked at the floor where Uruj and Sumi were on their knees, busy coughing out water. She raised her leg and covered it in armament along with Conqueror's hockey. He then kicked down on their heads as a slight crack sounded out. Tempest kick. Then, he cracked his neck. 16 seconds, kinda slow. It was then when his senses picked up something and he turned around, a smile on his face. And Yona, he asked gently towards the last person standing. Yona had dark, shadowy marks around her body, looking more taller and even a little muscular than normal. She had only 10% power of her fruit, which she used to summon the shadows from the new Thriller bark, and merged with them. Yona would never fight Amon, even if he ordered her as her god. But using the symbols on the walls, he had manipulated Yona's personality. He lied to Wiper. Do you want to forfeit? Amon asked simply a moment after, to which Yona nodded as her body went back to normal. I am sorry for underestimating you, my Kami, she remarked with a conflicted look on her face, to which Amon chuckled. He looked around the room and made eye contact with Aisa, whose whole body was trembling. Aisa, 31 seconds. Mark it, we would compare it after a week's worth of training. He simply smiled and turned around to meet Raki. Then Yona, can you take my precious sister to the medic room? Oh, if Chopper asks why she is injured in her crotch, don't say I did it, or he would annoy me the whole day. Raki, with tears gushing out of her eyes, her face bloody, simply glared at him from the ground, unable to move. Bastard, watch out when you sleep. I will get back for this. Amon laughed and shook his head amusingly. He pulled out his ring and teleported from there and went to buy some Aftermath mango juice. He was quite proud of his sins. Kaido's Thunder Bagura one-shotted Gear 4th Luffy, and although he wasn't sure if his blows were Kaido level strong or not, it's still a feat that most of the sins had to be hit multiple times to finally let it go. A few days later, 1005, 1006, 1007. In her personal gym, Raki was lying on a bench while lifting weights. After the 10th set, she stopped. She was barely able to drop the weighted rod on the carrier above her as she released a breath. My hands are numb. Let's take a break. After about a minute passed, she raised her arms again, seemingly filled with energy. She grabbed the huge barbell and lifted it up with little difficulty. Training is important, no matter how strong your fruit may be. Kaido didn't gain absurd defense in his human form because of his fruit only. The fruit played a part, but his training did too. Kaido has hyper-regeneration. Kaido or Raki was no Mako the Phoenix, but their body healed quicker than everyone else. This way, the moment they destroy their muscle fibers, it repairs itself and gets stronger. So the training they do is multiplied by a large sum. There is also the fact that whenever they are tired or can't train anymore, it's only a matter of minutes before they are fully energized. That way, when Raki first ate her fruit, her physical abilities were enhanced. Same with her adaptability. If previously training a year would have made her 10% stronger, now training for 1 year would make her at least 50% stronger. Though the word strong may be quite misleading here. Either way, a few days ago when the quickest fight of her life had taken place, She was not a generic strong swordsman. She was a Kaido Jr. who specialized in using a sword. She is a fucking tank. No kind of hit would damage her body. Yet, that happened. 7 blows in her precious private part had caused her to lose it. Advanced Conqueror's hockey or not, she wasn't expecting to experience that type of pain. Fortunately, she had a healing factor that healed her broken pelvis shortly after. But that didn't mean she wasn't angry. She was a woman. As much as she liked girls, she was still one of them. How could someone be so heartless enough to hit someone else's crotch? She has seen a lot of men complain about getting hit in their balls. They say when a man watches another man getting hit in their balls, the pain spiritually comes to them too. She has seen a lot of men wave off when girls said the same. Girls didn't have balls. How would they feel pain? Those motherfuckers, Raki yelled suddenly, as she sped up the lifting tempo. When she was young, she hated men. It's a known fact among the Shandians, but that hate gradually lessened to disliking. But sometimes she felt she should just go to a random island and kill all the men there. This was one of these moments. It would be a lie to say she didn't hate Amon for this. Although the injury healed, it didn't mean she couldn't feel the pain spiritually. You know, I apologized before hitting you. The sudden voice of her brother interrupted her thoughts. After a pause where he noticed his presence in the room for the first time, Raki gritted her teeth while still lifting the barbell. That doesn't signify anything. It does now. Fuck, get out. What are you doing in my room anyway? Raki yelled as she threw the heavy barbell at Amon, whose body just flickered and let the object phase through. While I was enjoying the view. You don't see a hot girl in a sports bra and pants every day. This was when Raki's body froze as her mind went blank. What Amon POV? Well, she froze. I didn't lie. Raki is beautiful. She was already enough before, but after the Angel 2.0 on the moon, she reached the top of this world with Hancock and Robin. And while Hancock and Robin are beautiful, she is a special type. Just look at those abs, that silky black hair as she wears those black sports bras and short pants, those thighs, and finally those perky breasts. I guess her training has a big part of her looks too. Most men would die for her, but I pity the men who would actually die. She would probably laugh at their death. Back to the present, I waited as her frozen expression changed and a disapproving look as she sat up. Hey, so you've been peeping on me, Raki said as I deadpanned at her. You horny bastard. You have been molesting my innocent body with those eyes of yours, haven't you? She covered her chest with her arms and looked at me as if I was an insult. Kaya, pervert, PFF, ha. I laughed out loud as she frowned. That was cute. But really, you think I will fall for your virgin tactics? Her frown deepened as she groaned. Get out now, or I will call for Issa. How about no? I jumped down from the table and walked closer to her. She didn't even flinch and maintained eye contact with me. Oh, you're approaching me. She smirked. So molesting you with your eyes was not enough. Oh, she is still playing her game. Huh, well, I will humor you. I released a smile. And what if I am? Not like anyone would care if the news gets out that Amon fucked his sister who has been lusting after him for years. She seemed to freeze again, but this time she regained her composure quickly. Though I didn't let that happen and leaned forward to her, pushing her down on the bench as her eyes went wide. She has slept with some girls on my back. Cheeky little bitch. Well, as if I am the one to talk. I leaned forward to her ears, ignoring her red but indifferent face. Tell me this, whose property are you? ... Double quotes. Raki didn't answer, seemingly shell-shocked at the sudden development. I bit her ear as she squealed a little. I am sure you know the answer. I slowly raised my hand on top of her chest and placed it on her blossom. Her body froze again. I am deliberately not reading her mind, since it's more fun this way. But I can still tell her to figure out if this is a wet dream or not. I never got so intimate with her before. I didn't need to. I pressed on her chest lightly. But what I said next threw her off. ... Does it still hurt? This brought her back from her fantasy as heat rushed to her cheeks. Son of a bitch. Get off. Get out of my room. Ha. I got up from above her, not before giving her ear another bite. As I looked down at her, she had covered her face with her hands, but the redness was still clear. I expected the infamous Rocky, who was known for seducing tens of girls, to be more than this. So you're still a little girl at heart, huh? I leisurely commented. Today I half expected to cross the line with her. If she said the word, I would have taken her right here, but she didn't. For whatever reason, she won't say she wants to fuck. Well, I am a patient man. Let's see how long she can hold off. Still, the main part of this whole act was to make things up with her. The last thing he wanted was Raki going rogue and leaving him. Then Amon would have to hunt her down. He liked Raki and wanted her to do the same, so maintenance was required every now and then. Hey Raki, I called. Didn't I say get out? No. Listen. This is important. Hearing me, she looked at me from the gap of her eyes. I am moving to Alabasta for a few months. She jumped up and looked at my eyes. What? No. Why? You know Pluton, the ancient weapon. I said, I need to fix it. General POVV was really happy. Really happy. Her husband is coming to Alabasta and he is supposed to stay here for MONTHS. How awesome is that? Her personal maid, Irene, also her secret stepsister, stood behind her with an indifferent but barely noticeable smile on her face. Calm down, princess. You should maintain a dignified presence for when Lord Amon comes. Yeah. I know. Now shut up, Irene, Vivi said, but there was no annoyance in her voice. She loved Irene and saw her as her best friend, though I guess I am being too happy. He said he would be busy working on the Plutohammer scientific project, so he won't have time for me, Vivi corrected herself, as Irene shook her head from behind. Irene knew what was happening. Vivi was that careless around her. Sometimes she wondered if Amon was right about it 2 years ago or not. Maybe she would make a better queen. No, she shouldn't think such things. In the end, Vivi was still her sister. She shouldn't think about eliminating her. A soft sigh escaped her lips that Vivi noticed and turned around to ask about it. But it was then when lightning sparked in the room as the figure of Amon carrying a bag appeared. Amon dropped the bag on the floor as he spread his arms. How is my beautiful wife doing? After a short pause, Vivi turned around and jumped at his embrace, hugging him back. I thought you'd come from the main gate, but you're in my room, she said. You couldn't wait to meet me, could you? Her husband just hugged her back as her face got buried in his chest. While she wasn't looking, her best friend and her husband waved to each other. Vivi, you look good in this dress, Amon said. Unfortunately, there is another person in the room, or things would have gotten wild, he added and chuckled to himself. Either way, we should meet father-in-law now. I need to explain to him some things. Vivi raised her head to catch his eye and smiled. Yeah, let's go. Come on, Irene, Vivi called as she pulled Amon out of the room. Past everything was fuzzy and a thick fog was covering the area. Blood was dripping on the sea from the sky where a giant man wearing an equally giant straw hat walked on the air by stepping onto blue half-transparent blocks. He was injured, a fist-sized hole was in his chest, yet he walked unfazed. Meanwhile, on his shoulder, a green-haired young boy sat. The boy looked no more than 10, and he had his hands pointing forward as more and more blue blocks appeared where the giant stepped on. Hey Cap, the young boy called in a solemn tone. Still, his hands raised and his eyes locked forward. The giant, who he called Captain, didn't answer, but the boy knew he was listening. What will happen after this? The giant stopped on his steps. He paused for a moment before looking at the sky. With a strange but charismatic smile on his face, he chuckled softly. It will be fine. We failed, but the next generation will succeed. After nodding his head, the giant continued walking while more blocks appeared in the air for him to step on. By then, a huge circular gap in the sea was in sight. Water was everywhere. The giant was walking above the sea, yet the massive hole was there as if nothing. Water was constantly pouring into the hole, but it was not being filled at all. Can you believe this destruction? The giant asked out loud. He practically erased a part of the planet to oblivion. What a monster. The child on top of his shoulders seemed unfazed by it. Well, yeah, but don't you think we should hurry up? The crew is fighting that exact monster you're talking about. They won't be able to hold him off for long. Cap, the straw hat-wearing giant, chuckled at this but still nodded. You're right. He released a breath as he noticed his wound acting up. This is the last seal. The first one was above Marajois, that man's home, and the second one was God's Valley. Now, this should be the last place. The plan is to put 3 seals in a straight line. 2 supportive ones and 1 main, which would be the one to hold the beast inside. 1 seal is in Paradise, another above the red line on Marajois, and the last is in the New World. They would be used to seal that monster IMU in Marajois. At first, the giant wanted to just put 1 seal on Marajois, but he realized, gathering the keys of the seal, the ancient weapons at that place would be quite easy and the seal would be taken off quite soon. So he decided to put 3 different seals in 3 different places where the ancient weapons would be used as keys to undo the seal. This way, it would be hard for anyone to free IMU, since if they want to release IMU so that he can wreak havoc in the world again, the ancient weapons won't agree. But if a wielder of D wants to free IMU for the last battle between them, then the ancient weapons would agree and the battle would take place. Though the giant man only hoped that the next fight wouldn't be won by IMU again. The giant man, Joy Boy, walked on the transparent plates made by the son of one of his crew members as he reached below the empty hole in the sea. Under the gap, a beautiful island the size of a big city was floating above the water that was being poured from the sea above. This island is the remnant of the Great Kingdom, or what Joy Boy likes to call Laugh Tale. He had brought this island here just before he fought IMU. The mermaid princess had foreseen the future where they would lose, so he had taken preparations in case her predictions had come true this time too. As it is his home that he had built with his blood and sweat, he wished for it to stay safe from destruction, so he chose to keep this island hidden under the seal. He then turned his eyes to the child on his shoulder. So Bart, are you ready to go into action? The child with green hair nodded. Yes, Captain. The process wasn't hard. Bart had to run around the island and surround it with his barrier that he can make with his barrier fruit. The plan is, Bart would create 3 barriers. To that he already did in God's Valley and Mariagua, and the third one was here. The barrier's power supply would be the one of here in God's Valley, while the main place where the barrier would be the strongest would be Mariagua. These are permanent barriers. There is no way to break them. There is only one way to undo them each. In God's Valley, The barrier is hidden underground, so people would still be able to access the surface of it. And to undo the barrier, they would need Poseidon to undo it via special means. The one in Mariagua is special too. There is an empty field there. Bart had to put a barrier around that field, where the crewmates of Joy Boy was fighting Amy. One would need to use Pluton as the key if they want to break that seal. But even then, the other two seals that are supporting the main seal would not allow it to undo itself. And this is the third, the laugh tail that is hidden under the gap in the sea. Uranus is needed to unlock this seal. And while the seals in Guard Valley and Gap in the Sea can be unlocked via one ancient weapon, to unlock the seal in Mariagua, one would need all the ancient weapons and undo all seals. Normally, creating indestructible barriers isn't possible even with the barrier fruit. Bart's barrier works this way. As long as he has stamina left, the barrier would be indestructible. However, if a person with enough power keeps hitting the barrier again and again, his stamina consumption would rise and soon he would lose consciousness. Even then, if he somehow managed to gain unlimited stamina, the barrier would still vanish after he would die. So that's a problem since his captain seemed to be sure that the next Joy Boy won't be appearing before Bart's death. So he made Bart create a special type of barrier that can store energy like a battery in wood. Use the energy to keep the barrier active. As for who had enough energy to be used as a battery for possibly a few hundred years, that's where Joy Boy himself came into play. Captain, I still think it's better for you to just travel to the future with Toki and then settle scores with Imu. This is a waste of time. Joy Boy ignored the child and touched the blue barrier that covered the whole island from all sides. Currently, because of the barrier, the island has become hidden under the water that is being poured down, so from above there, nothing can identify that something is under the hole in the sea. Joy Boy looked at Bart and beamed at him. I have already decided. Bart, though, when will you leave? I think this is the best time. The child snorted. No need to worry about that. I can just cover myself in a ball of barrier and jump in the sea. I would be automatically bounced upwards because of the water pressure. He answered as the straw hat wearing giant laughed. Haha, smart kid. He looked at him with adoring eyes. Ahem, either way, I am gonna start. Saying this, Joy Boy touched the barrier as purple energy jumped up from his hand. Oh, I can feel the sucking force. It's working. Currently, his hockey was traveling through the barrier and strengthening it, also traveling through the wireless thread between the three barriers and straightening them too. Joy Boy maintained his smile as he took off his hat with his other hand and pushed it on the child's head that covered his whole body. Keep that as a gift. The boy peeked out of the hat with a deadpan look on his face. What would I do with this giant-ass hat? This caused Joy Boy to blink. Ah, yes, you can't wear it. How silly of me. He tilted his head for a second before smiling. Wait, I remember Jasmine making a small hat from the loosened straws of my hat. He reached out for his pocket as a very small hat, at least compared to his hands, came out. He then pushed the hat down on Bart's head. Well, now it's good. After doing so, he again grabbed the giant hat and put it above the child's head, covering his sight in the darkness. He said, don't come outside. I am sure you won't like the scene you'd see. And by the way, keep this hat as a gift too, okay? There was only a silent yes from under the hat as Joy Boy stopped laughing. He looked at his hand, his fingers that were slowly becoming sickening to look at, the skin drying and bones slowly becoming clearer. Also, Bart Joy Boy's voice was heavy. Tell everyone from the crew to put a D in the middle of their children's names. I am sure they know what the D means. Another silent yes came from under the hat. This time, the voice was quivering. This was the moment when the fuzzy and foggy view became fuzzier, foggier. As a huge breath filled his lungs, Luffy jumped up from his bed. He took a deep breath as he looked around with wide eyes. What was that? Immediately, the door of his room opened as a blonde woman appeared inside, a worried look on her face. Captain, is everything all right? Ah, I think I just had a nightmare. Luffy blinked. Hiya, but I can't even remember what it was about. Luffy stretched his arms and shook his head. He thought he had had this dream before too, but he couldn't remember at all what the dream was about. I think it was about ... Boy Joy, Luffy said as he shrugged. Anyway, I am hungry. Luffy jumped from his bed. Sanji, I want meat. He was about to run past Honey Queen, but he noticed the bounty poster in her hand. Hey, whose poster is that? Oh, you're interested. Honey Queen said, you know, the recent Emperor of the Sea, the Sky Emperor. This had caused Nami and Sanji, who were sitting on the deck, to perk their ears up. He got a bounty increase, Luffy hummed, hearing her. What Honey Queen said caused him to freeze. It's 4.2 billion bellies, above Redhead Shanks. It wasn't only Luffy, as even Nami, Sanji, Usopp, and even Zoro froze. They haven't even heard of such a big number before now. What type of monster has that type of bounty? Luffy's mind already forgot about the nightmare and rather focused on something else. What did you say his name was? Sky King or whatever?